and you're having to renegotiate how you live your life, that there are no words to describe how intensely destabilizing that is.
Welcome to the Fusionary of Health podcast. It's me, your host, Dr. Shivani Gupta, and I have an incredible guest in store for you today, a woman who I met recently at an amazing health conference. She gave me her book. We connected. My incredible guest today is Dr. Marisa Snyder. Welcome. Welcome, Marisa.
Thank you so much for having me. Yay!
Yeah. So let me tell you guys a little bit about her before we get into the interview. She is a powerhouse advocate for midlife women, leveraging 17 plus years as a practitioner, author, and speaker to spark a massive movement for women in perimenopause and beyond. With her top-rated Energized with Dr. Marisa podcast, 13 million downloads so far, and a passionate social media audience of over 400,000, and 8 million monthly views, she's a trusted guide, offering science-backed solutions for perimenopause and metabolic health. Her upcoming book, The Perimenopause Revolution, a Hay House book, is the ultimate resource for women to take charge of their health and embrace perimenopause with resilience and confidence. You can check out her website at drmarisa.com for solutions to thrive. So welcome, Dr. Marisa. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. I'm so good.
Awesome. Well, I've loved meeting you. As soon as we met, I was like, oh my gosh, she's my kind of girl. We are totally aligned in our thinking. I just loved meeting you and feeling your energy. And I was like, yeah, she's very much aligned on, we have such power in our health to step forward, advocate for ourselves, and really, really have the power we need to feel and look and be the way we want. We're sometimes just not given those answers. So will you kick us off today with your story of how you became an expert in perimenopause in the first place?
Absolutely. My story started back when I was in full-time clinical practice. I had just gotten into practice, and my mom had me at a pretty early age. She was 19 years old. So by the time I was in practice, my mom was going through late perimenopause. And I remember even earlier years before that, her stress levels were pretty intense. Her energy was tanking. She had a lot on her plate. My sister had had some issues herself. My mom was really managing a lot of that. And again, it seemed like the daily pain points of a midlife mom. I myself, although my practice was filled with women in midlife, in perimenopause and menopause, I wasn't connecting the dots the way that I should have. And my mom really gave me a front row seat into the perimenopause journey. And there were times where it looked like a nightmare unfolding. In terms of the brain changes, the rage, the mood swings, the lack of resilience, I was like, oh my goodness, this is a lot. And I was really not only grateful for the front row seat, but also I got to be one of her main doctors in her care. And I began to realize, man, how deeply we were failing women at every turn, mainly because we just kept telling women that it was just the way it was, or it was just aging, or it wasn't menopause. So, just deal with it. And, I began to realize, wow, the transition into menopause is profound. And I deeply believe that it is the most overlooked health transition that women go through in their lives. And then finally I got there. And it was right on the heels of postpartum. So I had my son when I was 41 years old. And I mean, how deeply grateful, how deeply blessed I was and am still today to have had a son naturally at 41 years old. And again, the first year and a half, very postpartum journey. And then I felt like I was getting my bearings when my son was around a little over 1.5 years old. I was still breastfeeding. I was just trying to do all the things that were right by him. And there was a good solid 5 months where I was starting to feel pretty resilient. I felt like I was crawling out of the postpartum cave. And at that 5-month mark, it's as if I got blindsided by perimenopause. Wow. Now, I am not going to pretend and tell you that I knew that I was in it. I honestly, I was about to be 44 years old. The numbers don't lie. Obviously, I was in the zone of perimenopause, but I thought it was something else. I didn't come into pregnancy or even into perimenopause with the clearest bill of health. I've an autoimmune condition. I've had chronic migraines. There are definitely times in my life where I've had insulin resistance and burnout and cortisol deregulation. Like I've lived a very full life. I've kind of driven myself into the ground a couple of times. And so when these symptoms begin to pop up, really begin to present themselves, I was like, okay, is this my thyroid?
Yeah.
Is this my stress response system that's overactivating? Like, what is this? It's so funny. It was like right on the nose, but I just couldn't identify it. So I went down all these rabbit holes for 6 months. All the while, at the same time, I ended up having 2 major concussions. And so there were other things at play, but I'll never forget on the other side, like the symptoms began to present in the spring. Now it is October of 2023. And for the 3rd month in a row, the thing that flagged me was my rage. And I've always been good about tracking my cycle. I've always been good about tracking symptoms around my cycle because as any woman knows, you are literally a different person kind of any day of the month based on what's going on with your hormones.
Correct.
And so like clockwork, 7 days before my period, I would wake up with this deep, heavy sense of dread. And throughout the day, I would have this impulse to just feel this rage. It felt so uncontrollable. It felt so untethered. And honestly, I was fine 2 days prior. There was no rage. There was no dread. Life was fine. And so the first month I thought, oh, maybe this is concussion symptoms still. People have major mood issues during concussions. Second month, I was like, maybe this isn't my concussion. Third month, October of 23, I was like, this is perimenopause.
Sure.
And it felt so destabilizing. But I will say I was so grateful to finally know that was what was driving a lot of the symptoms or bringing up symptoms that I had been managing well enough, bringing them up to the surface.
It's interesting, right? When we walk into perimenopause, I'm 45 now. And as I started to realize what was happening, I was like, okay, well, I can just self-care my way out of it. I can just use my natural toolkit. And I think that's true. I always believe in the natural toolkits, but I also think that modern day life is what it is. And so if modern day life was you have zero stress, you eat everything organic, you're on a homestead, mountain air, who knows what the perfect inputs are, perfect air, water, food, and zero stress in life, which I don't see anyone having. Maybe it's possible that you don't have to take support, but the journey I've been on for the last year is wow. When you replace the hormones that just tanked and hit rock bottom zero, you get your life back. And so will you kind of explain to us what are some of these most disruptive symptoms for women in midlife and why are so many of these symptoms related to the brain? Because that was my experience. Was the first thing I noticed was brain. And I called my friend who's a practitioner who's been on my podcast. And I was like, you need to fix me. I'm ready. I need the brain firing on all cylinders. That's my main motivator for change always is my brain being online,
I've never met a woman that wasn't high achieving in some area of her life, that wasn't holding it all together for so many people. And you think about women and how magnificent they are, the ultimate caretakers, having careers, managing a lot of things for a lot of people. Again, really the epicenter of their family and of their life in the community.
True.
And so you can imagine as a woman, in your 20s, in your 30s, even maybe into your early 40s, for perimenopause it can happen as early as our mid to late 30s. Often it's usually women start to notice, like really notice. I always say, send me a sign, make it impossible for me to miss. It's usually 42, 43, usually where women are like, okay, I can't explain this anymore. Like something is going on. I don't feel like myself anymore. But what a lot of women will realize is they are holding all of it together. They've been holding it together. They're holding career. They're managing everyone's, all of the obligations, all of the to-do lists. And then they'll notice like their stress tolerance isn't what it used to be. Things that used to be effortless all of a sudden are requiring more effort. Things that they used to have a lot of energy for, especially mental energy, brain clarity, alertness, focus, productivity. And I think a lot of us are deeply rooted in the belief that if we're not productive, we're not worthwhile. especially women. Like there's so many areas that we are producing, efforting. And if we're not showing up in that way, like who are we?
Right.
So I think what ends up happening is women will notice, oh my gosh, my brain isn't working the way that it used to. I'm not able to get as many things as I got done. My emotions, all of a sudden, I don't have the regulation that I used to have. I'm finding myself more snappy, more irritable. I mean, the most common symptom of perimenopause is irritability. And then some of the bigger ones come on where they're like, oh my gosh, I not only don't feel regulated, but now I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling rageful. I'm feeling really anxious. My sleep, it's just not the way that I'm not sleeping as well as I used to. I'm having a harder time getting to sleep. And I think a lot of what's happening, one, besides our hormones are shifting and declining I always say without permission.
Yeah.
Because no one asked for that. Like no one's like, please, you know what? Maybe hormones don't show up when you're supposed to. Like I want that or decline, at any given time of the week. Like it's such the because it is so unpredictable. It's a bit unnerving and it's very destabilizing. But when your brain isn't working, when your resilience isn't what it used to be 5 months ago, 1 year ago, and it's impacting your relationships, it's impacting your work and the way that you show up, it's impacting how you get things done during your day, and you're having to renegotiate how you live your life, there are no words to describe how intensely destabilizing that is.
It's true. It's very true. That was my experience too. I was like, wait a minute. I don't accept any of this. I don't have time for this.
I didn't sign up for this. I'm a mom.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And also what me and my friends talk about all the time is mid-40s. A lot of us had our kids in our 30s. And so you were dealing with teens, preteens, while you're dealing with an aging elderly parent generation. And so it's just so much dynamic at once. And so when I talked to my HRT team, they were like, are you angry? And I was like, well, after 6 every day, I really wish I had my own house next door and I could leave. And they were like, what do you mean? I was like, I need silence. I need cold. And I need to be alone. I have no more energy online for any of these people and their needs. So that was a really big sign to me that, hey, something is happening, something is shifting. And so I know for myself, one thing I noticed that was big was I couldn't do my HIIT training at my gym anymore. And I have a gym I loved. And I kept thinking, what's wrong with me? Like, how can I not do my workout that I've done this whole time, every other day forever? But all of a sudden, the same workout just drained me completely and wiped the energy tank. And I thought, okay, that's a change. And so each thing added up. And so I know that you wrote a new book that I was just reading called The Perimenopause Revolution. And it's an ultimate resource for women to take charge of their health. Mm-hmm. Is it your perimenopause journey that's led you to writing this book? And what is your mission with this book?
Absolutely. I say, initially it was my mama's journey, being a part of her journey. And then, wondering, I'm like, is this going to happen to me? Yeah. And it's my perimenopause journey is definitely not the same as my mom's, but it has felt equally destabilizing, despite the fact that I've been taking care of women clinically for over 17 years, literally in this demographic. But man, you can know all the things, and until it happens to you, whew, goodness. And so I do share a lot of my personal story in this book because I always want women to know that we are in this together with you. Yeah. We are in it. I'm going to be in it for a while. My mom didn't go into menopause until 52 years old. I'm doing the math. I'm 45. I've got another 7 years, give or take. I'm going to be in this journey. And here's the thing, it's a continuum. And so what I want women to walk away from with this book, one to know, to understand, to have agency over their body, not only to take care of yourself and to know yourself, but also to be able to advocate for yourself. Just like you're the CEO of your home, your household, your kids, your work, it's time to become the CEO of your health and of your body and to start prioritizing you when the world is telling you to prioritize everyone and everything else. Sure. Then I've had other books where I really go into the symptoms of brain fog, the symptoms of a stress response system going haywire, symptoms of weight resistance and all the things that can happen, sleep issues. But I wanted to, in this book, I was like, well, how do I feel good right now as I'm navigating the treacherous terrain of perimenopause into menopause. But then also, I want to double dip. I want to know that the things that I'm doing for myself today are going to translate to who I'm becoming 40 years down the line.
Nice.
And the question I always ask myself, or the thing that I want, the kind of my North Star, is freedom. The freedom to want to do the things and get to do the things that I want to do today. And I want to have that same exact freedom to live the life and do the things that I want to do 20, 30, 40 years down the road.
Awesome.
I always say, I don't want to have to negotiate with myself right now. I definitely do not want to have to negotiate with myself at 65 or 75. So what does that look like? How do I future-proof myself now? And I am putting, I'm putting savings in the bank, in the health bank, for many, many years down the road. And so I reverse engineered all of that with all the research, and I created what I consider to be the top 7 pillars to future-proof your health today and tomorrow.
Nice. I love that, because as I study menopause as if it's my job, since I'm like, what's coming for me? This is so fascinating. And the women who I work with are all in perimenopause and menopause as well. They're all midlife, because the products I create are a lot around sleep and inflammation. I see that the struggle is so big. And also, if we're not future-proofing ourselves, as you called it, we've got a lot of bad things coming down the line. And so it's really about, can you pause now when your body is screaming and say, hey, let me address the issues. But what you're saying is also, let's preventively address these issues looking forward 30 to 40 years, because the addressing of inflammation, sleep, and the big building blocks, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, whatever the categories are, is so powerful for the freedom, the mobility, the quality of life you get to have going forward, which is what I'm obsessed with. My whole family had diabetes, and the end stages of that diabetes resulted in stroke, heart attack, leg amputation, Parkinson's, dementia, quadruple bypasses. Like, it was all very bad. And so I know that if we allow metabolic disease, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes to run all the way till the end, that last quarter of life can look horrible, even outside of what we're talking about, perimenopause, menopause. So I love that you're teaching, hey, your body needs support now. Let's get double dipping support out of it.
Yeah.
And so my next question is, when women come to you, do you find that the biggest motivator is weight gain, hair loss, some of those big ones? Or is it the whole constellation of, you know what, I don't feel like myself, and all these other issues are coming online? And what's kind of behind that stubborn weight gain that women are experiencing in this midlife phase?
That's such a great question. The number one thing that women come to me for is the body composition changes.
Okay.
That they're experiencing weight resistance. They're noticing major energy dips. They don't feel alive in their body anymore. They are struggling to do the things that they used to do, and they don't feel comfortable in their body. Sure. That's usually the primary. And they know that it's rooted in metabolic issues. So they know that there's a deeper root cause. They're like, okay, if I can see this and it's overtly showing up for me and I don't feel comfortable, and I'm noticing, man, my brain isn't working well, my energy is struggling, I'm noticing all this belly fat, I know that there's something happening inside as well that over time is going to play out, and not necessarily in a good direction. Sure. So there is definitely the connecting the dots between my body is changing without permission in a way that I'm not loving. And I have a feeling it's going to translate to what I've seen with my mom or with my dad or with my grandmother, just exactly like you had said. You're like, I've seen this play out. I've watched this tape before, and I'm not willing to put it back into replay. Excellent. I want a different life. The other thing that women come into me for is often the brain related symptoms too. They're like, also, I don't feel resilient. I don't feel like I have emotional capacity. I feel like my stress resilience is gone. Can this all be connected? And yes, it can. And so the first thing I always work on when I'm working with women is going to be the metabolic piece. Because cool. I do believe that every thought we have, everything that we do every day, the way that we show up is rooted in our cellular energy. I think that we always got to be thinking about, how can I improve my cellular energy? And so the question I ask to any of my patients, especially when I'm looking at labs or if I'm running labs for the first time, if I can't get labs, is, are you metabolically healthy? And I'm looking at cardiometabolic health. And so the way that we define metabolic health, and mind you, only 7% of adults in the United States are fit under the criteria of being metabolically healthy based on the NHANES study. And when we look at that, it is 5 biomarkers that we want in range without medication. So if your blood pressure is in range because of medication, that is still considered a biomarker out of range for your cardiometabolic health, right? Whether it's medically managed or not. Again, 93% of us and women over the age of 45 are the most vulnerable, because here's the thing about estrogen. Estrogen is a whole body hormone, and it is a shield protector of your health. And so as estrogen begins to decline, particularly as we head into late perimenopause, it can happen in early as well, that protection, that health protection that we had begins to falter. And we start to see metabolic labs begin to go out of range. So those 5 metabolic labs that we're looking at a fasting glucose. If it's at 100 milligrams per deciliter or more, one, that is prediabetes, and I would consider that poor metabolic health. But that is a biomarker out of range, and that would be one criteria. Number 2 is triglycerides at 150 milligrams per deciliter or more. Number 3 is a blood pressure reading of 130 over 85, systolic over diastolic. Next is waist circumference. So for women, 35 inches or more. For men, 40 inches or more. And then the last one is going to be your high density lipoprotein. So your LDL, your good cholesterol. Women, it's got to, if it's under 40 or under, and men, if it's 50 or under. And if 3 of those 5 markers are out of range, that is considered metabolic syndrome. That's significant risk for cardiometabolic disease, like big risk factor. But even if you have 1 or more of those markers out of range, we consider you in that 93%. So that first step is just to know those numbers. Now, are there other biomarkers that I think are mission critical for understanding your cellular health? 100%. But at the very least, we want to know where those markers stand and if you are in the 7% or the 93%. Because if you are in the 93%, now we know, and there are a lot of things that we can do to, again, improve your metabolic health, improve your insulin sensitivity, but ultimately improve your health span over time.
Hi, I'm Dr. Shivani Gupta, and I created Fusionary Formulas because I believe everyone deserves a natural way to support their body's health. If you struggle with joint discomfort or stiffness, our Turmeric Gold delivers powerful curcumin in a form your body can truly absorb. It's science-backed with the highest quality ingredients and designed to support your body's natural inflammatory response. Take the next step in your health and wellness journey today. Visit fusionaryformulas.com and use code FusionaryHealth for 15% off. Fusionary Formulas, ancient wisdom, modern science, maximum impact. So what you're saying is, as we enter perimenopause, the struggle for maintaining a healthy metabolism will become harder and harder because of our estrogen shield being gone. Isn't it also true testosterone tanks, progesterone tanks, thyroid dysfunction is so common? And so it's almost like this collection of hormones that are all entering what feels like a roller coaster mode to me. I was thinking about you today in the morning, and I was like, well, isn't what she's really saying is we walked into an amusement park and we had hoped we'd get on roller coaster 1, 2, or 3, but instead the whole ground is a roller coaster. And every day we have no idea which way we're going to fall and what's going to happen in this thing. And that uncertainty of all the hormones cascading is the main struggle here, outside of everything else you're talking about, resilience, sleep, of course, metabolic syndrome. But how do women start to address these kinds of issues, the metabolics and the hormone piece?
Such a great question. So you're absolutely right. No hormone is operating in a silo. Estrogen isn't just declining, right? We know that testosterone is declining. Melatonin, which is a hormone, is also declining. Progesterone was declining well before estrogen was ever declining. I mean, for majority of women. Some women estrogen bottoms out before progesterone. Each and every one of us are going to have a unique journey. For me, I already had thyroid issues coming into perimenopause. So that was already on the radar. Mind you, is it medically managed right now? Absolutely, but still. And then the tipping point, the thing that is so insidious, that I feel it really drives the kaleidoscope of so many of these symptoms is going to be the stress piece.
Absolutely.
I think the reason why we see more symptoms earlier in perimenopause and menopause is because our stress load is so much greater than it has ever been. And I don't joke about this. I'm very honest about this, is that there is nothing about this modern day world that is conducive to optimized or happy hormones. So
True.
you add stress to the mix when hormones are declining, and we're talking about a tornado effect. And it's no wonder that our metabolic health takes a hit. It's no wonder that our stress response system feels like it's on the fritz. It's just all kind of, and it's no wonder the HIIT workouts, now you're just tipping the scale, right? You're like, any extra stressor is going to tip the scale, because HIIT workouts, I love high intensity interval training, but it's a hormetic stress. And if you're already tipping, you're already at your bandwidth, add a 45-minute HIIT class, see what happens. Or add a cold plunge, see what happens.
Right.
There's a lot of things where there's a lot of these things that we think are super, super healthy. But if you're already at a tipping point, it's actually going to cause more deregulation than it's going to actually help. And so, but I do find, because estrogen is such a powerful immune system modulator, it is the CEO of the brain. It's the ultimate hormone for the brain. It is modulating muscle protein synthesis. It is modulating gut diversity. It's modulating bone absorption and reabsorption. As that hormone I kind of feel like it's the domino effect. Like, you may have already been insulin resistant. You already may have had a little bit of cortisol deregulation. And then you pull the domino of estrogen and it all starts to fall apart. Like, you may have been maintaining that insulin issue a little bit, enough. But then you pull the rug from under a woman because you pull estrogen out of the situation. And now you were kind of barely insulin resistant. Now you're a lot more insulin resistant. And so I still believe that at the core root of all of it, right? How a liver function is ultimately how a cell functions.
Sure.
Yeah. How our brain functions and ultimately how a neuron functions. And so at the epicenter of all of it, I do feel like if we can solidify our cellular energy, our really good energy that we're making in every single cell of the body, we really can set ourselves up for winning. And there's a lot of lifestyle interventions that we can begin to bring in as well. Kind of, I always say, don't major in the minors, major in the majors, like first and foremost. There's a lot of, biohacking is so sexy and there's all kinds of things. And I don't even use the word biohacking in the book. I talk about bioharmonizing for women, because I can't, like, the idea of biohacking our bodies just feels so, in a way, inappropriate for how our bodies, our deep innate intelligence functions, our deep wisdom. Like, we're trying to hack that wisdom. It just doesn't feel right. But for us as women in particular, what matters most is that we focus on the fundamentals.
Sure.
That's where we focus on that. And then if you've got wiggle room, you can bring in some of the biohacking pieces. But honestly, I think it's the fundamentals. And so that is, again, improving metabolic health. So blood sugar and insulin sensitivity, eating for our metabolic health. It's circadian rhythm optimization. It's having great ways of sending safety signals to the brain and regulating the stress response system. It's community. It's hormone replacement therapy. You're right. It is. And it's building your life around movement, really being outside and moving as much as possible. You and I don't know about you, I've sat almost all day. Yeah. And I've been in an office room all day. And this isn't how we were ever meant to live. No. And I know that when I'm doing this consistently over and over and over again, I feel it. My body feels it. It doesn't feel good. So how do we create lifestyle strategies and habits that enliven us, that, optimize our metabolic health and our cellular energy? Sitting at a desk all day isn't it.
Absolutely. And, one thing you said in there was bioharmonizing. And I really loved that word, because as women, I think like you've talked about today, a lot of times we are pushing. We're pushing on all fronts in all areas. We're go, go, go mode. This is a conversation I have with a lot of my friends because we're all working women or entrepreneurs. And then we're like, should we have just stayed home? Should we have just enjoyed the kids? And then the conversation's always like, well, yes, but I wasn't built for that. So I'm going to do this thing where I try to do both. But where do we land at satisfaction or any ease and flow in our day? And so as an Ayurvedic practitioner, I teach a lot about the lifestyle tools we can bring in from ancient wisdom. And like you said, biohacking is a new term, but I kind of look at biohacking as the modern technology you are assigning to achieve what ancient wisdom always said we needed. And I think as women, we have that wisdom within us. We know intrinsically what we need, but we've learned also to kind of ignore those switches. We're like, later, I'll do that later. And I say that to my kids all the time. Yes, we'll do that. Just give me, we'll do it this weekend. And I think so much of what you're saying today is we need to start to really focus on ourselves, bring ourselves back to the forefront and put ourselves first so that we can get through this time that's almost like a catalyst that could send our health in a really negative direction. And one thing I've noticed in the last few years is I think part of the problem with perimenopause, menopause is we're coming at it like a freight train, hitting that wall. And instead of it being a kind transition point, which many of our cycles have been in life, this one feels like a brick wall because we're walking in so inflamed. Like you mentioned, cortisol dysregulation, inflammation, metabolic
Stress.
dysfunction, potentially driven by inflammation, insulin resistance. That's so many of us in the US. You just said 93% of us. And so what are some of your tools that you use for, blood sugar, for energy hacks, in a sense, like building more energy and cellular energy, as you called it? Because you're right. Over time, we're going to have mitochondria decline. And so we need support to kind of give us the lift back up during this time.
The first step I always tell my beautiful ladies is to know your numbers. We talked about the metabolic numbers, but to know your numbers in real time. Sure. I think so often, a blood sugar spike and a crash. I mean, sometimes we notice, we notice the mood, we notice the hangriness, we notice the energy crash, but sometimes we don't, especially if we've been living like that for so long and it's all we know. It's so hard to distinguish. And so I always say, at least let's put a CGM on you for even 2 weeks, ideally 4. Let's just learn a little something about you, because again, if our ultimate currency is energy, and blood glucose can be a beautiful a learning biomarker for how we're making energy currency, let's learn a little bit about you. Yeah. And so I typically like to put a CGM on me personally every quarter. I've worn one for month, for the first, I wore one for a full year, and then I wore one every other month, and now I'm down to quarterly. And there's so much that I always learn every time I put one on. But one, sleep. How is my sleep impacting my blood glucose and my energy, or vice versa? If I eat at 8:00, how is that impacting my sleep? How am I feeling? Do I feel irritable before going to bed? Is that having a role? What I'm eating, what I eat in the morning, how does it set the tone for the rest of my day in terms of energy, capacity, and blood sugar regulation and balance? And then the other thing I love looking at as well is, how are my meetings impacting me? How is movement impacting me? And you want to know the number one thing I learned in terms of regulating your energy and your blood glucose. Now, mind you, you're eating pretty well. You're not eating an ultra processed food diet. You're not eating an added sugar diet. You kind of dialed that in, which so many women have. A lot of us are really good about the eating part. The number one thing, let's say we've dialed a lot of the eating piece. You're not just gobbling sugar and refined grains all day long, is building your life around movement. Absolutely. So I was mind blown. When I've worn CGMs and my blood glucose, I'm talking chef's kiss optimal, 70 milligrams per deciliter to 97 milligrams per deciliter after meals. We're not even touching the hundreds. I don't go anywhere near the hundreds. I was moving all day long. And I know someone is listening to this who is a mom who works, and she's like, this woman is crazy. I have no idea how I can do this. And I share my hack, my perimenopause lifespan, health span hack. And that is mini exercise snacks. You talked about HIIT training.
Yeah.
And I can't do a 40-minute HIIT exercise anymore.
Me
Like
not.
I burned my cortisol levels out years ago.
Me too.
Like my body is so quick to go into the stress response system. Like I have so many practices in place to keep my stress under control. And HIIT training, oh man, I will kiss the rest of the day goodbye.
Correct.
I can't function. Right.
Neither.
So, but what if it was only 2 minutes or 1 minute or 5 minutes, multiple throughout the day? And what I've learned is that, in between meetings, you can knock out 20, 40 squats or even jump squats, or you can do some mountain climbers, or you can do some modified push-ups, or you can walk up and down your stairs with 10-pound weights or 15-pound weights. You can do this 4 or 5 times a day. And what I've seen is what I've noticed in my patients and myself, you're going to have more mental clarity. You're going to get better sleep at night. You're going to lose more weight. You're going to burn more calories because you are constantly revving your metabolism, and your cardio-metabolic rate. You're going to balance your blood sugar. You're become more insulin sensitive. And you're going to get your steps in. You're going to hit those numbers, right? And it's not about the big workout. I mean, if you love the big lift workout, the strength training workout, I still do those too. But on days like this, where it's just a no-go, it just isn't happening, given my schedule, I just punctuate my day with little mini movements. And I've noticed that the more that we can move throughout the day as much as possible, the benefits are phenomenal. Like to me, that's the game changer. So that's probably if I bring anything to the table besides having agency and being present and having besties, it is to build your life around movement as much as possible. Yeah.
I agree. I totally agree. I actually wore a CGM for a month and it was enlightening because I learned what carbs actually don't have a big hit on my blood sugar. I was like, oh, I can eat potatoes. Thank you. I didn't know.
Or sweet potatoes are a no-go for me, so, but regular potatoes are great.
Yeah. Isn't that
It depends on the person.
Exactly. And so customizing is so profound. So I love that you brought in diagnostic tools because I do that with my clients. I'm like, guys, you need to measure your sleep. Don't ask me to fix your sleep until we get some data. And then that with a lot of questions and interrogation, I can finally dial into what the issue is. But yeah, my dream is always for women to understand we have so much agency over our health. And I love that you dive so deep into explaining that in perimenopause, there are a lot of different approaches and customizing it to yourself is key. Understanding all the different aspects of it is key. Understanding the role of HRT is. I know I have one of your books here because I met you at a conference where you were doing a book signing on the essential oils menopause solution. And I was like, oh my gosh. And as I read through this book, you gave so many different tools and tips and tricks around it. So I love the exercise snack one. What's another big favorite of yours?
Another big favorite is going to be sleep consistency. What that means, in case you're hearing that for the first time, is the consistency of you going to bed at the same time every night and you waking up at the same time every morning. A new research study just came out literally a couple weeks ago showing that 67% of women in midlife struggle with sleep issues. And it's a cacophony of reasons, right? One, our lives are busier than ever. We finally get the kids to bed. Finally, we're able to do all the things we were supposed to do. So we eat into our time. Our sleep is inconsistent. So our circadian clock is off. And our hormones are tanking. And so, progesterone is so mission critical for GABA activation, and GABA is mission critical for sleep. Also, melatonin is declining too. That's happening as well. At the same time, progesterone is declining very steadily. So there's a lot of things that are happening. Night sweats, hot flashes, having to get up and pee. All of these things are playing a role as well. Maybe your liver is not struggling, or maybe you drink a lot of wine, or a little bit of wine, or or you ate a little snack before bed and that's messing with you as well. So there's a lot of reasons why. But the one thing that we can control is when we go to bed and when we wake up. And let's say you're still struggling with the when we go to bed part, like you're wired and tired, it's not working. What is so mission critical here is to wake up at the same time, no matter what. So you still wake up at 6:30 a.m. and then you get outside, signal that brain, signal those eyes with light so that you can help reset that circadian rhythm, that biological clock. So I have a whole chapter on optimizing circadian rhythm, because even sleep consistency alone can significantly improve your health span. And that's one of the reasons why I wear a Whoop strap every single day, because I want to know what my consistency is. And currently right now, it's around 80, 81%.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
great. It's such a powerful point. Oftentimes people don't respect sleep as the number one tool. And I always teach that if you want to clear inflammation, clear the lymphatic system, and heal the body, sleep is where it starts. And circadian rhythm is a concept from Ayurveda. Like, this is an ancient principle. It's been true for millennia. And so bringing that wisdom in is so key. And like we talked about, we're talking about women's health and really understanding that we are cyclical beings living in a cycle of nature. Yeah. And so honoring that has that much more impact on us and our lives. And so, as I've listened to you today, I've thought, I have so many friends who every time they say something, I'm like, that's perimenopause. And so what is your wish for the world around perimenopause? I know mine is, please understand what it is so that you can build the right team and the right toolkit to win at it. Because otherwise, if you don't learn this practice of self-care and what you're calling agency, as you walk into menopause, things shift even further, potentially. Yeah. You won't have the practices in place. And as you lose that shield that you're talking about, you also may lose a lot of your health, because it's a huge shift. It's an endocrine, brain, every organ shift of the body. And so in your book, I know that you talk about a 5-week reset program and showing women how to build that resilience back in and build their energy back in. And so what is your wish for the world with this book?
Yes, absolutely. So I do talk about perimenopause being a window of vulnerability, because things are shifting. And I am not disillusioned that my body is shifting. I am so aware. I can feel it. And I also know that this is such a remarkable opportunity for me, for all of us, for women to be heard, for women to understand their bodies, for women to prioritize themselves like they've never prioritized themselves before, right? We are at a fork in the road here. We can go the default path, right? The path of just like letting it happen to you. I don't recommend it. Totally. Or we can go the proactive path where we're like, you know what? These signals, these are beautiful messages that it's time to really take care of me. It's time for me to be discerning. It's time for me to decide where I actually want to put my energy in the second half of my life. Because you know what? All those obligations I thought I was supposed to say yes to, all those beliefs that someone asked me to carry, all the life I'm living for someone else, I don't have to do that anymore. And honestly, if I keep going that path, I kind of see how it's going to play out. And so I think this is such a beautiful opportunity for us to not only reclaim our energy, but decide what we want to spend our energy on. Absolutely. Decide what you want your future health to look like and what you want your future self to look like. This is a beautiful turning point. We have every year, it's a New Year's resolution, or we have every birthday an opportunity to ask, what are the life's lessons that I'm bringing into the new year? Well, this is the second half of your life. And so you're in this defining moment where you get to say, okay, I have been living this life. And there are things about this life that I've lived that I'm grateful for the lessons. I'm so grateful I've learned these. And this isn't what I want to carry forth. I also have decided that this is what I love. I love these things. These are the things that bring me joy. These are the things that help me feel alive. These are the people that make me feel safe. This is what I want to bring in to the second phase of my life. And I am going to own it. So we get to decide. We get to decide how this life we get to live. Again, we're at the halfway mark. I'm probably at my halfway mark at 45 years old, right? Give or take. And I want the second half of my life to feel vibrant and alive. And I want it to feel like it's on my terms. So what do I get to do to make that happen? And I just want you to know that you get to own that decision and you get to decide what you want.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that reminder. I think as women, sometimes we think we're just on the same path and we forget there's an intersection moment that's happening here. And like you're saying, there's so many lessons coming up at once. And one of the big ones is, if you have a energy tank that's shifting, how will you prioritize within that tank? And I think about that a lot now, because it is about prioritization. It's not an assumption that you have what I used to call my 300% level energy tank compared to most people. Now I'm like, it's not always 300. it's just not. So how are we going to prioritize within the time frames? So I've loved everything that we've shared today, Marisa. I feel like I could talk to you all day. And I even have more questions like, what do you do with estrogen dominance? Because you want to bring on progesterone, but should you take estrogen in perimenopause? Like there's a lot of nuance there
there's
around
a lot of nuance.
customizing for each woman because we are all so different. And that's where I find it so important to get the knowledge and hire the right practitioner and team to get in there and customize for you. But I know we're hitting the end of our time frame. So will you share with everyone where they can find you, where they can find your tools, where they can find your amazing book that I'm so excited about, that I'm reading right now? And thank you for doing this work for all of us.
Thank you. I cannot tell you how exciting. This book was built as a rallying cry. It was built as a movement. It was built for every woman who has felt that everything is shifting and yet they don't feel seen or heard or they don't feel supported. That's what this book is all about. And so I'm going to walk you through what's going on, what's happening at a systemic level, and then I'm going to lay out the pillars as easily as possible. And I'm going to give you a plan. But more importantly, what matters to me is if you go and order the book now, and once the book is out, whether it's pre-order or even when the book is out, I am giving you the most insane toolkit with lab reference ranges that are optimal, with all the things that you need to have a conversation with your doctor so you can advocate for yourself, with so many recipes that are easy to implement that you're going to be like, I'm set for life. Workout videos, mindfulness practices. I mean, I've built everything you could possibly want so that you can start feeling better, more amazing, more alive today, but also next week, 90 days out, next year, so you feel like you are armed and ready to take on this next part of your life with as much agency and energy as you can muster.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That's so cool. That's exactly what we need is support at a 360 level through this moment, you know? Beautiful. So where can
including friendships and community, you know?
Very true.
All of it.
Very true. I need my friends more than ever. That's for sure. So where can they find you and the book and all of this wonderful information?
Absolutely. Well, the book is anywhere books are sold. Please go into a bookstore if you want, but you can, I mean, I'm an Audible girl, so I'm going to be getting mine on Audible. I will be reading it. But also, Amazon is easy. I ain't gonna lie. So do what you can do. Like get it wherever you want. You can find me on the podcast, Energize with Dr. Marisa. I know I'm having you on very soon. Yeah. And on Insta is my favorite place to connect. It's at Dr. Marisa. So at DrMariza. So any of those places are fun. And I'm just so excited to be on this journey with you because we are in it together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for sharing your wisdom. I know you have created an incredible book and movement for all of us in our midlife to feel supported and really set ourselves up, like you said, future-proof ourselves. So thank you for all of this, Dr. Mariza, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, honey. Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you everyone for joining the Fusionary Health Podcast. If you want any more information about this podcast or me, just visit shivanigupta.com and you'll see on there my inflammation guide and everything else that I talk about from an Ayurvedic perspective. I'll see you guys next week for the podcast and I'll see you soon. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining me for this episode. Check out our sponsor, Fusionary Formulas, the potent turmeric supplement used by doctors around the U.S. for patients with pain and inflammation. www.fusionaryformulas.com. I'm your host, Dr. Shivani Gupta. For more, visit shivanigupta.com. Subscribe to this podcast in Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Click the follow button or subscribe in any of the apps that you use. That's all I've got for you on the Fusionary Health Podcast this week. You have the power to transform your health and achieve vibrant health starting today.